the causes and consequences of emotional suppression.
Emotional suppression.
Yes. And in the 10 defense ego mechanisms that comes into play. Yes. So we're going to try to give a definition or something to go on when it comes to emotional suppressions, or what are suppressed emotions. What are suppressed emotions? Suppressed emotions are simply emotions you choose not to acknowledge, thereby failing to act on them or expressing them. One fact you need to be aware of is that emotions can never really be suppressed and have to leak out in one way or another. So it makes no sense trying to suppress them. The aim is to get to determine the level of psychological stability that one may have. Psychological stability. We left off last week in regards to asking a specific question. What do culture play in suppressing, or when it comes to our emotions? I'm going to share something, read something from you, and then we're going to proceed on in this dialogue, discussion, and exchange. Yes. I'm going to read something. It says, well-being an essential requirement. Well-being an essential requirement. What will bring the African American into a proper ordering of his emotionality? And as I read something, feel free to come in as you choose. What will bring the African American into the proper ordering of his or her emotionality and into the proper devotional urge rather than the pleasure urge? We see that there is a devotional urge, as this writer talks about, and a pleasure urge. And I always say that adequate cooperation leads to proper communication, and that's how we effectively coordinate our power. So when I look at this society in which we live, I see the pleasure. But the pleasure also comes responsibility. It goes on to say this world sells its citizens on the pleasure urge. They say that pleasure is the first motivation, that the object of man's life is to be happy. Yes, happiness is a primary need in life. It certainly is basic, but the wise did not call it happiness. They called it well-being. They said that the natural object, the natural goal of life is well-being. Happiness is too vague a term to describe this natural goal. I realized that happiness is the joy that you feel when you are in pursuit of your potential. So let's take a look at the word well-being. Well-being is not only an essential requirement in our life, it is an essential requirement in the life of anything, a dog, a cat, or any other creature. Will struggle for well-being. If we think about in a society in which we live, if someone sent me something about the creation of a race, that they would create an inferior and make them feel superior, so it was for their well-being, not for the well-being of another. And that represents some form of giving them some psychological stability or some psychological edge over another group of people? Well, we struggle for well-being, but well-being for the human being is a big term because the limits for our growth are much bigger than the limits for the growth of an ordinary animal or creature. We may be happy. We may start out seeking to acquire something that our life needs. We may acquire what we were seeking and still not find happiness. Because what we needed or wanted was just one part of what our life really needs. While we were seeking it, we thought that was the whole. We might say, if I can just get that, I know that I will be happy. The question of concern when it comes to emotional suppression, the causes and the consequences, let's look at the word happiness. What does happiness mean to you all? Anyone?
State of mind. It's not definite. It's something that comes and goes.
Satisfaction with something or with a condition.
Can I say something?
Yes, sir.
If we compare happiness and satisfaction as one, do they compare with one another?
Satisfaction and happiness is one. If you look at a group of people, let's say the Native Americans, if we may use them as an example, if I may use them. They say everything is tied to the Great Spirit, and that's the one, But if you discount that oneness, then that doesn't make you a part of the member because you don't think that in that manner, in that way. So you discount it. If you deal with intellect, you deal with the mind or the body, and you discount the spirit, but yet you measure things by the physicality of the mind and the body and discount the spirit. Is that being one? Is that satisfaction? Is that happiness? Remember I said earlier, it may be happiness for the one that will discount it or create a biological, create race, black or white, what have you. They will create that. It will satisfy them, satisfy their ego, and make them happiness. So therefore they become one with that and they agree with it. But the other group of people may not agree with it. So it has something to do with their value system. So what is a value system? Does a value system make you happy?
I think whatever can make you happy can also make you sad. So, you can have a whole litany of emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Anyone else?
I think the value system is an outline of goals to strive for to help you attain happiness.
It's an outline. He says an outline.
Yeah.
Okay. Outline sounds like brainstorming.
Well,
That's cool. I'm just saying. That's what it sounds like. Yeah.
I think it can already be established, or it can be one that you setting up for yourself. If
Right.
it's already established, then that might not be brainstorming unless it's brainstorming in as much as trying to figure out how you can actually adhere to that value system.
Yeah. Now you're getting into standards now. If my life expectancy is 27 years old, and it takes me, and if I started school at the age of 15, and it took me 20 years to get this degree, right? 15 plus 20 is what? 35, right? Do some math if we can. 35.
But you done said your life expectancy is 27.
Right. That's what I'm making a point in reference to what you're saying, what we're talking about now. Because talking about a value system, someone must come up with a value system that works on behalf of their life expectancy. So these are what people so-called, what they call the Greeks did as well, you know what I'm saying? So they will create a value system that benefits them. So the challenge is, and benefit from that value system. So what is the value system as what we call African Americans that we have that we have benefited from and that we can continue to benefit from? I'm just raising the question. That's all.
Well, for me, myself, I say I strive to adhere to the principles of the Nguzo Saba and to the values of virtues of Maya. I look at both of those as value systems.
Okay. Now, there are cycles in ancient, there were cycles of development, cycles of life. And I think the Native American may have 7. I think that Egyptians have 5. But what about the cycles of life that we have, that we can, I can't say adhere to, but that has benefited us here in America? Or are we extracting from someone else and incorporated from the ancient Egypt, as you say, with Nguzo Saba and so forth? Are we extracting from them and incorporating that here in North America, blacks? Because it's not for me. It's not mine's. It may be yours, but it's not mine's.
As a whole?
Yes.
No, I don't think we have a whole collective understanding of how we operate as black people. You talking as a whole, right?
Yeah, it's cool. Whole individual does it?
Well, I mean, I think that's a tricky question.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is, I mean, nobody, if we can say in any ethnic group, or if we use this word called race that you said is not really a real thing.
Right.
It kind of confuses us. So, but I mean, I think that when you say black people, that's a very general question. So now, as black people, do we have general consensus about things? I think we do on a general level. We take we get some research and we ask questions, and we'll realize that maybe 80% of black people see this. 80%, 80% like there's values. Now, as far as a complete value system, I think there's multiple and various value systems, just like in any other ethnic group.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Anyone else? Because I was going to. Yeah.
I think if you look at it that way, I would say that the most value system that I would think of that would affect all of us would be love for family and feeling that we should protect our family or help our family survive. To me, that would be
I hear you.
that's probably practiced by most people.
Right. I hear you. Because that's what ethnic people do. You know, they create a value system that protects and look out for their family, their well-being. And it is the collective psychology of their mentality, which means it makes them, become more, more mentally able and more psychologically stable, if I may use that language, because they know that it's best to serve, their value system is best to serve them. It's best to serve them. So the challenge is that in finding happiness, the guy said this here, some people think that if they get enough wealth, they do not have to be insecure or feel any material threat. They will be happy. Most people who have a lot of money are not really happy. There are some people who think that if they get enough knowledge, it will make them happy. That ain't the truth, for sure. You will find that some of the saddest people are those with PhDs. None of those things that I just mentioned are a guarantee for happiness. Celebrities, hey, you can include them. You know what I'm saying? They got wealth. So We want to find out what is pleasing or what pleases us and what affects us in the culture in which we live when it comes to our emotions. What pleases us and what affects us in the culture when it comes to our emotions. Yes.
Can you remind me what the topic of the discussion is?
Yeah, the causes and consequences of emotional suppression.
Causes and consequences of emotional suppression.
Because I was going into I'm dealing with the emotionality. Then I was going to get into what we're going to pick up from last week is the 10 ego mechanisms of defense mechanisms that we do use to suppress our emotions.
I think that maybe it's the challenge itself, or the act of attaining, trying to reach those goals, because it seems like you said about money,
Yes.
that money doesn't automatically make people happy because they just seem to want more and more and more and more.
Yes.
So maybe it's the actual challenge that works on us as far as keeping us. Because if you get something and you think that's all you wanted, you've achieved what you wanted, then you probably become bored. You know, but if you don't still have something to do, something to fight for, something to strive for, to achieve.
Anyone else? So is there any satisfaction? Go ahead, because he said happy dissatisfaction. Go ahead.
I think most black people are hungry for equality.
Mm-hmm.
And it ain't so much of equality, it's the equality of outcome. Is equality a myth, or is it just something that you try to attain? Can we go there and find out whether we equal to the people that we grew up with? You know, is equality something to be challenged, to be respect? It's something that you earn, because a lot of times you can be put in a position, I say like this. You know the game Monopoly? Everybody know how to play Monopoly? Everybody starts off with the same amount of profit and money. Well, who say money? And when you start out, you buy property. So it doesn't matter how intellectual you are. It doesn't matter whether you can attain what you're trying to attain. There's always somebody, or 1% of people, that's going to end up with everything. You see, you start out even, but you don't, the equality outcome is not the same. You see what I'm saying? So you're always reaching for something. And just like people saying, when you get there, you want more. You know, or do you fit in? You know, you have to understand that what we look at as being inequality is can we be there? Can we step up to the plate? Can we understand what's going on? You know, do we have the intellectual ability to be there? You know what I'm saying? So.
Dennis, brother, yes, sir. You was thinking.
Question? Is that a question?
No, I thought you wanted to respond to him.
Okay.
Because he was saying, because is there a difference that Brother Gray was talking about? We all start off, like the same, equate or equal. But is it that what distinguishes us is the use of our faculties or our intellect? That's what distinguishes us.
Well, I don't think nothing's that simple. I mean, I hear things like, well, this is that, and that is this, and I just don't think, well, I would say I know things aren't just that simple. So that could be one characteristic that distinguishes us. I would agree. But there's numerous, endless amounts of things that distinguish us. We everything. you and I, we have things that are similar, we have things that are dissimilar.
Mhm.
But that is one of the things that distinguishes us. I mean, as far as what is happiness, I think that's an individualistic thing.
Mhm.
I do think there's some values do aid in in what you believe will make you happy. And maybe even some people are happy of it. I'm not even gonna say people aren't happy to have money.
Mhm.
I'm just saying that there is some research that money does bring about a certain amount of happiness.
Yes, sir.
Just a certain amount.
Yeah, a certain amount. Yes,
Then
sir.
I think once you get over, $50,000-$60,000 a year, there's no greater difference.
Mm.
So even if you're on a pursuit for more money, you don't become any happier. And the more money you get, sometimes you can be so afraid and frightened and that you're going to lose it that you're not happy.
Mhm.
But some people can really deal with it.
Mhm.
So I think it's neither this or that, but all of it. And yeah.
Yes, sir. All right, that's many variables. I'm gonna go on, then I'm gonna get into the 10 defense mechanisms of the cause and consequence of emotional suppression. Just want to try to set the tone for a minute, if I may, and open up a dialogue and break a monotony, if I may. The same condition that keeps the African American people out of progress is a necessary condition to bring them to the proper state. The emotional makeup that keeps them out of progress will keep them out of establishment if allowed to prevail in their lives. This same condition is also necessary to get them on the right path. Emotionality is a baby state in the evolution of man. If we look at the levels of progression that life goes through, the society historically has to rise to, we know that the state of emotionality is one of the primitive states of man. But nevertheless, it is the emotional state you must first order correctly before you can find your correct way in this world. Is that so? Because we're talking about trying to manage our emotions. I have challenges with it.
You have challenges
in managing my emotions.
So the question is,
yes.
Emotionality a requisite to what again?
Is it a prerequisite when it comes to finding our correct way in the world?
I would say yes.
Yes. But I agree with.
I don't think we need to get to a state where we don't have emotions. Because kind of the way I'm hearing what you just said is like that should be a goal to not be. I don't think you need to be. Let that be your guiding factor, but I think you have to have that state of emotion in order to be human. Because if not, you might do any old thing if you don't have some kind of emotion to guide you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that emotionality is valuable and
Absolutely.
Yep.
Brene Brown, who is a research social worker, she does something on emotions. She talks about all emotions being important. And you're speaking to this topic of suppressing. I heard you say, I don't think you meant it, but you said you can't really suppress it.
Yeah.
I think you can suppress it, but how long can you do that, and how healthy is that? Now, she talks about if you cut off one level of emotion, then you cut off all emotion. If you block your emotions to be sad, then you have no ability to be happy. If you block the emotion of being hurt, because or suppress or repress your emotions, then you can't get rid of one emotion and not get rid of all of them. Two, she says, going back to what you're saying, I agree with it, and what Mama Donnie was saying, just to put more on top of that is be led by your emotions, but steer with your intellect. To put your emotions, let your emotions, you be the engine or what have you, right? But now allow your intellect to do the navigating.
Right.
So emotional, if we don't have emotional buy-in to something, then it's kind of hard for us to continue.
Right. Yeah. It's like, the car. The emotions gotta be the transmission that's gonna take you there. 'Cause you can get angry about a thing, but what do you do with that anger? Right? So I think it's more about balance, or about knowing how to correctly, utilize the emotion. Suppression, I think, is one way. I don't know if that's the most healthy way. I think that's a way to, but to deal with it, I think, is just to kind of process it and what happens after that. Because I think a lot of emotions are natural, right? You got anger, it's a natural emotion, right? You get upset about something, see somebody hurt in the street, see somebody killed, see somebody black killed, that's a natural emotion. So you're like, well, I'm gonna go kill somebody, right? But that's emotion. Eye for eye, right? That's an emotion. But I think
That's a value.
well, that could be even a value.
It
It is a value.
What's the emotion behind that value? Wanting to kill us.
Right. So with that, I was just saying that the emotions are natural. And so, like the brother Vincent was saying, I think in some ways we cut them off. I think we cut off more than one. And suppressors almost like to cut off in an instance, I believe, right? So the suppressor thing is to kind of take it under, to not deal with it, to shove, meaning below the surface. So, I would just say, I think that it's a matter of balancing those emotions to have, to be in a good state of well-being.
Yes, sir.
Balance and control. Control your emotions, that self-discipline, please.
Can I say something? Is emotion a taught trait? It's taught. Can you be taught emotions? Can you be taught emotions? I mean, is it not a feeling? Do we feel everything? We don't understand everything. To understand everything, you gotta go with the mind, I believe.
Now, because what we're getting into, I'm reading, this is what we're getting into, in that emotion. All right. It says, faith is a form of emotionality. I have faith because of my emotional makeup, my spiritual expression, my fear, my intuition, my instinct are nothing but conditions of emotionality. We find that the origin form of a human being is emotionality. That's what we're talking about. Thus, it is an emotionality that the intellect dawns. Emotionality in its proper state, it is the suitable womb for the birth of the intellect. Go ahead.
I mean, the Bible teaches you a lot of emotional things. When you get into faith, it's emotion.
Mm-hmm.
It's being taught.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that you feel.
Mm-hmm.
Really something that you know.
Mm-hmm.
You really want to know something, you have to learn it. So if we put emotions around everything, are we really understanding what we're doing, or we're just acting out?
Acting out. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
So, I don't think there's a thing that you can. So I think emotion has a negative, connotation in this country.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing that we do without some form of emotion for the most part. I mean, you can cut yourself off, like if you want, but emotion is a beautiful thing. Now, being too emotional may not be the best or the most healthiest thing. Even just sitting here talking, there's some level of emotion in it. I have to now name that. I don't know what that emotion is right now. But again, so it's, are emotions learned? Are they innate? You have primary, secondary, tertiary emotions. Primary emotions are those emotions that everybody has, everywhere in the world. Then you have secondary emotions and tertiary emotions that are learned and cultural specific and all that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, like for example, you have anger and what else, like hurt and all that type of thing that are like primary. Everybody experiences this. You know what I mean? Now, so is emotion? Yeah, there's a level of emotion and a healthy being in everything we do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how stable and in place and all that is that is the, I guess what is important, I would say. Not to not have emotion around a thing, but to really try to be balanced, or I'm trying to find a word to really say, not to have your emotions out of whack.
Mm.
You know, not out of balance,
Mm-hmm.
not going too far, not too extreme.
Yeah.
Now it's okay for extreme in situations, because some people are the people who are the most excited and elated. In fact, women, this is not a generalization, this is scientific research, have more emotion, range of emotion. How so they get to experience things at a higher level of happiness, but also can experience a higher level of sadness. And so there's nothing wrong with that either. So, but that just means that, in fact, they've been taught this is not a say that men don't and all this, but I'm just saying in general, women tend to do better with their emotion, being able to connect with it, right? So, you know, and so if we don't know what to do with our emotion, we fold many times. It's the reason why to be honest with you, now this is my hypothesis. This is not, I probably going to look it up, or it's probably not even research on it. Maybe we should need to do research. But that's why a lot of times, okay, the more you in tune with your emotions, not to say negating intellect at all, but we're talking about emotions right now, the more you're able to do things, the more you're able to lead, the more you're able to build, the more you're able to be in relationship, the more you're able to do things. When you suppress, and this is many men have learned to suppress their emotions. Hence, when we don't do well in relationships, business relationships, intimate relationships, as Monty was speaking about, you know, relationships the last time we were here. So, emotional intelligence is an indicator of success. Second to, or maybe even primary, I have to look at it again, a little clouded on that. Is an indicator of the more successful go-getters, the people who accomplish things, the people who actually run organizations and that type of thing. Because you have to have a high level of emotional intelligence if you're going to deal with people.
Really gonna get involved.
Yeah, because other than that, if you're going to get involved, other than that, you cut people off, you don't know how to, you start fussing people out, you know.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Is that emotional responsibility?
Well, on an intellectual level, we can call it responsibility, but you can be responsible for your emotions. You know, as we improve our emotional ability, we are more responsible with our interactions with people. We're more responsible with our own selves. You know, when we can't manage our emotions, we turn to things like alcohol and marijuana and cocaine and just all types of things to kind of cope with this reality that we have not been taught to deal with.
Yes, sir.
Is the right word responsible or is it accountable? I mean,
You're asking me?
whoever, maybe,
Yeah.
because I don't think I see responsible as something you choose. If you're responsible for something, you are responsible for it. But if you're accountable for what you've done, to me that's different. If you're accountable for the emotion that you have, to me that's different from being responsible. Because I don't think you can necessarily choose to be responsible. That's just a given.
Well, I think it depends on what we mean by responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think what I took from what he was asking is that just something that we are supposed to do as responsible adults. Now, somebody can give you a responsibility. Now, the other thing is who's going to enforce it and make you accountable,
Yeah.
or you're going to make your own self accountable.
Right.
You know, but I think now I might be wrong, but I was thinking that you were. I'm feeling like that's my emotion. You may think that you. What's your thoughts about emotions? Let me just ask that, because I feel like there's something you're trying to articulate.
You know, I was just distinguishing between the difference. You know, it's arbitrary. I mean, people take on emotions, people take on responsibilities. We're social by nature. That's responsible right there. That's a relatability. We cannot live alone. We understand the social byproducts of getting along. You know, and you can infer that as emotions. You know, but it's a responsibility.
Say that again. I'm sorry, I missed it. You can infer what is emotions?
Responsibility. You can infer social responsibility.
I think they're different. If you want to,
Yeah,
if I could answer the question, I'm talking about responsibility and emotions. I think responsibility is a word that's describing numerous things, like you know, or what you're responsible. I think that's an act in a sense. Now, emotions is more of what, as you started off earlier, and I think more of a state. You know, a feeling. Now, responsibility, I don't see how. I know you can help me. I don't see how responsibility and emotions are confused.
I asked you the difference between responsibility and emotion. I asked you, is that responsibility?
Well, I would say no, from what I'm hearing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think emotions and responsibility are the same. I mean,
I think responsibility is an emotion. If you choose to be responsible for something, I think that's
Is that social?
is it social? Yeah, it's social.
responsibility is an emotion. Okay.
Yeah, I think, you know, because either you act responsibly or you don't act responsibly.
See,
But you probably, but like I said a few minutes ago, I think that that's a given.
but I think actions.
If you're responsible for your emotions.
But actions and emotions aren't. Actions and emotions. I don't want to say absolute because I could. You can help me out here. But actions, from my limited understanding of this thing, actions and emotions are different.
Yeah, I think you're right because you act upon your emotions.
Absolutely, they are
Yeah.
different. So,
Yeah.
even when you look at, you know, even if when you're being aggressive, right? You can be emotionally, you can start to be aggressive with doing things such as staying at first long, like you know, you beat them up at school. You know what I'm saying? Like that's an emotion, and that's an action with the emotion. You know, so and a lot of times
I agree.
they come with each other. So like, you know, the question was what was and that was another thought.
Another emotion. Hold up.
But the question was, can emotion and
Are the responsibility and emotions the same?
responsible? No, because you gotta actually act out the emotion. You see what I'm saying? If I'm upset with you, there's ways that I can show my emotion. I show I'm upset, right? I I can look, I can stare at you.
Be angry.
Yeah, and you will feel that though. You will know I am off of my actions. But I can do it and don't even let you know.
Do what?
Be angry.
Be angry, don't let them know.
Mm-hmm.
So when you acting on it, that's kind of showing. I got messed up.
I think the sister wants to say something.
Go
Say,
ahead.
can responsibility be both? Like, can't be both a feeling and an action? So, for example, when I say I feel like I have a sense of responsibility, it's a feeling, right? And it's this feeling that leads me to do whatever it is I might do. In the way that I don't know, I might feel angry. I might feel like I owe it to this person who I'm next to do something in particular. You know, like it's a sense that leads to action. So can it be both?
So you feel responsible?
Right, like it's a feeling of, like you have a feeling of responsibility or a sense of responsibility that leads to some sort of actual action in the same way that anger might lead to an action or sadness might lead to an action.
I can see how you can say it in that way, but when we put it in the action terms though, you know, I can feel, and you probably can take responsible, I feel responsible, put another word to it. But even feelings, you know, emotion, I think, see the thing is, emotions, we feel them, right? And then we name them, and that's what we call feelings. Even feelings and emotions to a degree are different. You know, so yeah, I can see that makes sense to me.
Is that experience?
Say it.
Was you taught that social?
Responsibility.
You had to put someone.
I mean,
someone
yeah,
else.
I think so. Yeah.
Probably are taught to put an action to your responsibility, then yeah, you probably taught that.
Action to your responsibility.
But even if you don't act, so for example, maybe you don't act when you have a feeling like you should have, right? So whereas responsibility is that feeling like you should have, but you didn't actually do anything. So, you know, I guess that's why I'm thinking of it in two different ways. Like responsibility could be a feeling, but it could also be an action.
I think I have a problem with the word responsibility
Okay.
being a feeling, just the way it's now. If I feel responsible, now I think that's what it is. Kind of like when I see responsibility, that's more like I don't know, just. No, responsibility is like it's like a chore. It's like you know it's a responsibility. But if I feel responsible, that is different. Like some people feel very responsible and very guilty, and very like and but responsibility, help me out.
I feel like it's a gray, it's a gray zone. You know, I think you can kind of.
Responsibility is a feeling.
Well, one is a noun.
Yeah.
And the other one is a what? Responsible is an adjective, isn't it? Well, the other one is a noun.
Yeah.
Experience.
Now, if one's a noun, do
Responsibility.
you have nouns that are emotions?
Love.
Huh? What happened? Love is a noun. Well. I mean, I think I understand the term responsible or something like I feel responsible for, therefore I feel now responsibility.
It just be like guilt. That's a feeling of guilt. You feel responsible, like remorse and a guilt.
Is that taught? Taught?
Is it taught?
Guilt. Everything they learn. Everything they learn. All we need is learn.
Because this is the thing. I said that here. Thank you. I appreciate that. So we are responsible to give account for the consequences of our actions. We are responsible to give account for the consequences of our actions. And if we are not,
Talking about responsible and accountable.
Well, what are we doing? When we deal with the word responsibility, all we're doing is responding to our ability. And we must develop the ability to manage our emotions. If we don't develop the responsibility to manage our emotions, that makes us to become irresponsible. So we don't want to deal with the consequences of our actions. But therefore, we'll kill and hurt and harm anyone because we have not yet managed our emotions. And this is the influence that culture has on us. So certain things need to be taught, need to be learned. As a mother doesn't necessarily, or a father doesn't necessarily send his or her child out there unless they teach them to be responsible. You know what I'm saying? There are responsibilities that you must you must learn. You know, and that be the case, we realize this here too is that in being responsible, when it comes to the consequences of our actions, to give account for the consequences of our actions, we realize the importance of not being too logical and less emotional, and not being too emotional and less logical.
I see what she said, though.
You have to merge the two.
I don't think she used the word sense.
Sense, yeah, sense. Responsibility. It's a sense, yeah. It's a sense of responsibility. Because we have these five senses, but we have these senses that is in us. You know, and we must be responsible with them, with our eyes, our ears, our faculties, or whatever you want to call it, whatever it is that's on our body, we are responsible for them. You know what I'm saying? And I realize that nature comes to awaken us, and it tries to get to the intellect to make us aware. Once you are aware, then the responsibility is on you. That means we can't escape and blame no one else. That we are responsible for our own actions and decisions that we make. So, yes. Now we want to get into the 10 ego defense mechanisms. Yes. One, I'm going to throw the definition out when it comes to repressed emotion. Then you all can chime in. One is, I'm going to read something before I go into them. The 10 common ego defense mechanisms that we encounter regularly in our day-to-day lives. Your ego is your sense of self. And we always like to blame Mr. Ego all the time. You know, we can't blame Mr. Ego. It's just you. You know what I'm saying? So yes, technically your ego is your conscious mind, and we all desire to feel worthy and stay psychologically stable. Now, when something happens that threatens our well-being or decreases our self-worth, our ego gets hurt in the process, and our psychological stability is disturbed. Any kind of emotional pain or trauma that we experience harms our psyche, just like a physical injury harms our body. When you cut your hand with a sharp object, for example, your body defense mechanism come into play and heal your wound after some time. Similarly, when your ego is under a possible threat or has already been hurt in some way, there are certain defense mechanisms that are launched by your subconscious in order to protect it and maintain our psychological well-being. In other words, our subconscious mind employs these operations to protect our conscious mind from emotional pain. These defense mechanisms can sometimes be very helpful in allowing us to cope with a traumatic event, but at other times they may just be a means of self-deception. These are some common defense mechanisms that we experience on a daily day. And number one is rationalization. We can rationalize and justify anything that we want. So it means justifying your wrong actions by providing reasons that seem reasonable. If you were unable to achieve something, then instead of admitting that you failed and hurting your ego, you might say it wasn't worth it anyway. Rationalization. What's your take on that? Read it again. Rationalization. It means justifying your wrong actions, even though someone has a problem with the word failure. Your wrong actions by providing reasons that seem reasonable. If you were unable to achieve something, and then instead of admitting that you have failed and hurting your ego, you might say it wasn't worth it anyway.
Rationalization.
Yeah.
Now, friend.
You rationalize don't like the way that you say it.
I got
How do
what
you
you're saying.
rationalize
I,
something
I
like
got what you're saying because if I'm hearing you right, because I know on a personal level, and sometimes sometimes you think you're sharing things with the people and they ain't getting it, and you say it ain't worthy anyway. You know what I'm saying? It's not worth it anyway. So you're discounting, and when you're discounting that, that's defending your ego. Yeah, it's defending the ego.
How do you rationalize with somebody that don't know you? They just look at your body posture, your gesture. And for those reasons alone, they don't like you. How do you rationalize with people like that? These are the things that happens every day. It causes a lot of problems for a lot of people. You might not even know what's going on, but you'll see the difference in this person's attitude when it comes before you. When y'all around, you can see it. You don't know it, but you see it. You know what I'm saying? How do you rationalize it?
You already rationalized it when you said when you say he don't like you just because of your body problems. You rationalize it right there.
That's not the same thing.
You said he don't like me and it's because of my body posture. That's rationalizing.
I'm just expanding on what I'm saying.
Now,
I think,
I'm
Go ahead.
giving you an example.
mhm.
I think what you're saying, or asking, is how do you reason with that person once they've already judged you?
Yeah.
How do you deal with this person? How do you interact and engage with this person?
And how do you rationalize with that person?
So, but I agree with what Mom and Donald said as well. I mean, you first you can't we rationalize in our mind. We had making some assumptions as well, right?
Right. But still, it's something has to be done.
Yeah.
Right?
Not,
I mean, if you conversation. I mean, we got to find out what's going on, right? Why he feel like that? Why he acting like that? You know what I mean? So when you deal with stuff like that, right, the only thing you're gonna get out of it, either conflict or conversation. How do you rationalize with stuff like that?
If that was a situation for me, I wouldn't.
You ignore it?
Unless he really meant something to me. Otherwise, I'm going to go through my whole day wondering, looking at people and wondering why they don't like. All I can do is be me. And if I ain't hurting
I'm sorry.
if I'm not hurting myself by being me, then I'm not going to necessarily have to worry about why you don't like my body posture.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying is, now getting back to the same thing, if you know this is how this person thinks, you don't feel
But
within yourself to try to
But
change
you don't
that?
know that that's how they think. You've
The only way
assumed
you're gonna
that.
find out is you gotta
Have a conversation.
have a conversation, right?
Or not.
Or not.
Yeah, because you can, if we go back to the word rationalize, going back to what Mama
Yeah.
you in your mind, you've already, to some degree, rationalized, and that conclusion came about. You can now challenge that rationalization
Yeah.
and say, well, maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I forgot whose body posture was.
Yeah.
See, but the interesting thing is, I think you were saying that it's my body posture, not necessarily his. So because of my body posture, I feel like he is judging me.
Right.
So that means to me, I'm rationalizing whatever issue I got that my body posture is like that, whatever, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, but I think the question is, I think what you're saying is, how do you deal with that person?
Yeah. How do you let that person go out in the world and consider and keep on doing the same thing over and over again?
Which one?
The person that judged you for what you
Just
said.
well,
And
people.
my question would be, why do you feel like you're responsible?
Yeah. You're the judge for it, right?
what's up?
You know
What's
what I'm
up?
saying, right?
She said she ain't even impressed. It sounds like she said she not even giving that much energy.
No, she don't care.
She cut that emotion off.
I'm too old.
She cut that emotion off.
Yeah.
She didn't cut it off, she processed it.
Process it?
She said, why am I even can't change the world. I can't change people who are having opinions of anybody and everybody. If I stop, I rationalize to the fact that I can never stop people's opinions.
Yeah, because if I stand over here, then somebody over there gonna say, "Oh, she's leaning the wrong way."
That's right.
Because it says here about automatic distorted thoughts. One is mind reading. You assume that you know what people think without having sufficient evidence of their thoughts.
Right, but if we could, I'd like to go back to rationalization real quick.
Oh, we still there. We still there.
In the context he was using was a little different than what she was asking.
Yeah.
I think the context you was asking was kind of like if somebody being egotistical and you raise the question and they kind of what they do, they rationalize their behavior instead of confronting what just happened.
Yes, sir.
So they gonna start playing word games. They gonna start saying semantics.
Yeah.
And when you say, I thought you were gonna do it later, they gonna say, I did. Later make me tomorrow.
You talking experience. I got you. I got you. See, you talking experience. Good stuff, Monty. Yeah. Now I'm serious. That's touching. But that means we're making progress. You know what I'm saying? By you saying that. Because we seeing how people they try to justify and rationalize everything, and they play these mind games and these word games on you to try to justify the sickness that they are not in control of their own emotions. Then they try making you feel guilty about yourself when that's not the case at all. Does that make sense though? The thing is, but when you come to that understanding, you are being the model. They are observing the model in you. You are teaching them at that moment there. You were teaching them at that moment.
In other words, if they trying to say, this is probably that same scenario you used, right?
Yes, sir.
Let's say we said, can this be done later? They say, yeah, I'll take care of it later. Yeah. But when they say later, they never give a specific time.
Right.
Infinite.
Right.
3 weeks from now. Right?
Yeah, I got you.
So, how do you say you're being the model in that scenario? Like how?
I think Dennis wanted to respond to that one.
Oh, and I'm looking at both ends though. So to me, both parties are rationalized. What's the word, y'all?
Rationalization.
Yeah, rationalizing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because even like the first moment I say, let's do this. All right, we're gonna meet up. All right, we're gonna meet up later. To me, both parties are guilty, if I can say, because when people tell me let's meet up, let's do this, and ain't no time to it. Yeah. I already know it ain't real.
Yes, sir.
It's like you can't be serious.
Yes, sir.
Now I think when you talk about something like but I do think people do misuse it. But I think both parties are responsible for that. Now, unless there's when people know, when you know, and the person know.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
There's certain things unwritten.
That that you're supposed to come to work.
Right.
And then, Or can I give a quick example that I've experienced many times? Somebody be like, let's say somebody come in here like, okay, it's my birthday. This is my birthday on Friday, and they're supposed to be working. Right? And you expect them to come to work or come to group or what have you. But then they don't come. And then you call them and you ask them what's up. I told you it's my birthday. I told you it was my birthday, so now I'm supposed to get from that message.
You're supposed to know what they do on their birthday.
Yeah, so they rationalize. I told you. Now we got,
But you're supposed to say, is that a work policy?
Is that a value of yours? That's not of mine, so.
That's good stuff. Because in that we're dealing with, people say you reason within reason or something. You do things within. You do things within reason. And I realize the best faculty that has been given to us is the ability to reason, but reason with progression, as I always say, rather than regression. And I think that's a good expression of the first ego defense mechanism was rationalization, and that's a real good one. Because I know, and I'm gonna say this, and then we'll move on. Because I know there's certain things I wish that I could have handled differently. Because at some point and me not being able to manage my emotions, it's going to leak out. It's going to rear its ugly head. You know what I'm saying? So, but these are things I think that when we they probably destroy countries, that they're too emotional and less logical. You know what I'm saying? Without, as Dennis would say, merging the emotions and the logic, merging together. Or we're talking about balance. The key is balance. So yeah, the next one is displacement. Displacement. Yeah, it means dumping your negative emotions on a safer people or person or objects. If your boss angered you, then it won't be a good idea to release your anger in front of him unless you get fired. So you go home and tell your family members or punch a punching bag to release your hostile feelings. Yeah. Now I could say personally, I had an experience and recently, and another gentleman, and because I'm always gauging myself, and another brother said something to me that I thought was inappropriate, but it wasn't required upon me to take out my frustration on that particular individual. And I gauged that. I said, well, damn, I ain't even take it out on him. You know what I'm saying? It means I'm learning to manage my emotions. You know what I'm saying? That makes sense? Yes. So just displacement. You dump your negative emotions on. Plus, you do it on. It's like the laws of physics says the person can only take but so much pressure, and you know how you walk the streets, and people only think if they see you vulnerable, they're gonna take it out on you. But if they see that it's not safe to do so, they may not do it.
Right.
Go ahead.
Question of, okay, so with the displacement, I can see that as being negative or positive. I don't know. I mean, is it negative then if you do take it out on the punching bag? I think I would consider it negative if you waited till you got home and took it out on your family. But you said tell your family about it, but that's not necessarily what a person would do if they're displacing it. They might go home and hit their wife instead, or get angry at their child for something that might be a minor thing, and they might turn it into a major thing. I can see that as being negative, but then the punching bag to me would be all right.
Yeah, the illustration that is given, it is given to make a point. There's still a point. So the punching bag is just in there.
Yeah, but even on a punching bag not good either.
Yeah.
It's not.
No, it actually did a study. It did a study with the Bobo dog. Remember the Bobo dog? When they had kids, they allowed kids to go into a room, right? And they allowed the kids to take that frustration out on the Bobo dog, right? After a while, that's how they thought they were supposed to take their emotions out aggressively. And it's not good to take them out aggressively because what? Later on, aggression is going to be aggression, right? And so aggression is the voice of the unheard. And so if you actually allow yourself to be assertive, right? So regardless of the situation, even if it's the boss, if you talk to you, you mistreated you or talk to you a certain way, you can assert yourself in a manner, with the art of tact. You can tell anybody anything.
Still say respect.
You understand what I'm saying? So if you assert it, you're not misplacing the anger. Yeah. When you misplace it on that punching bag. You misplace it on the dog. You come home and kick the dog. You misplacing that anger. Yeah. But if you take it to the rightful owner, you get a chance to, kind of assert it and not necessarily misplace it.
What you're saying is that you're making no excuse. What it's saying. You're making no excuse to be able to manage your emotions. You're making no excuse,
You're making an excuse.
Yeah, no excuse at all. Yeah.
So, is that psychological?
I think it is psychological. Yeah, it is psychological.
Displacement is that what you was talking about? Psychological?
Yeah.
I get mad with you and I'm gonna beat my wife.
Yeah, because what we want to see. We want to deal with the cause and consequence modes of suppression. We'll get to a point where we can see how psychologically stable we really are. Talking about psychological stability. Yeah.
So you call it a psychological defense mechanism.
Yeah.
Psychological.
Yeah.
But I don't know. So the example though, taken into as far as the examples.
Yeah, I got you. I got you.
The punching bag.
Yeah, I got you.
Now, let's say healthy, not healthy. Let's say,
Yeah.
Now I think, oh,
It's gonna leak out.
They
It's
call
gonna
it
leak out.
displacement.
Yeah.
Because if displacement has to be, if it's also if displacement is also considered going home and journaling.
Yeah.
And because what I heard, the end goal, what I heard from you is this. That might have been the example might, from a scientific base, might be disproven. But let's say, because now they've done further research to realize if you take out aggression on somebody else, because it was thought that, punching bags and screaming at pillows and all that was helpful. Now, this example might have been with that thought process. That's what it sounded like, because it said take it out and then relieve or something like that.
Yeah, you said, you take it out, release your anger in front of, yeah.
So now, going with the understanding that you released the anger,
Mm-hmm.
and did you release it in a healthy way, or did you, so going back to what Mom and Donnie was saying, now maybe we found out now that maybe the bubble doll or the punching bag is not healthy, but if now I'm releasing it in my pen, and I did something with it, and I let it out, then that's healthy. If that's also considered displacement.
Yes, it is. Yeah, go ahead.
The bubble doll, they're kind of.
It may be a different term, but I got what you're saying.
It has to be managed when you deal with kids.
Mm-hmm.
With beating bags, stuff like that. Right? It's logical to manage the kid's anger more so than anything else. You can't just let them go do that and just expect good from it. Because you have grown-ups that do the same thing. They beat the bag and then psychologically they go beat somebody else up. Like, it's got to be managed. It's got to be, you got to know what's going on.
That's key, because even when people are in the boxing ring, they angry, they taking out their life experiences, on somebody in that ring, and it becomes like a sport. You know what I'm saying? Because there's a psychological word, psychology word called a sadist. A sadist, takes pleasure in inflicting pain on people. You know what I'm saying? So there's some mental things that are people, some underlying things that are not being detected when it comes to managing our emotions. It really is,
And that's a lot of things that we don't get into as black people.
Yeah.
We don't seek help with certain stuff like that. We take it out on each other.
Yeah. And that's why a circle as this, through this institution here, is that it's a healing circle. You know what I'm saying? I realize just because the healing does not mean that the damage never existed. It just means that the damage don't control you. And we can see that people are successful in sports, and now they're taking out aggression on people. But you can tell that their private life sometimes don't match up with their success. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, but yet they become the role models. You know what I'm saying? People tend to, go ahead. Yeah. About that. Yeah.
They also struggle with alcohol intake as well. So
Yeah.
just because you've seen stuff from outside does not mean that all the stuff you're taking in on you don't displace it. So a lot of people displace it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I'm gonna leave go on this one.
Okay, brother.
All right.
Yep. Because there could be something called, intimate violence as well. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of things that we need to deal with when it comes to emotional, the suppression of and the causes and consequences of emotional suppression. Y'all want to move on to 3? Because we're at 3 now. All right, 3 is projection. I always say never take anything personal, what anything says personal. That's just a projection of their reality, not yours. But projection, when you blame other people, and that's automatic distorted thoughts, when you blame other people, things, or situations for the misery you may be going through. Also, it involves attributing your own negative thoughts and feelings onto others. For example, a person who himself has short temper may constantly complain that everyone but him is short-tempered. That's a funny one there. That's a funny one there. And that's a funny one there, only because it come and remind me of me. Yeah, man, you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
What was the definition again? Projection?
Yeah. When you blame, that's automatic started thoughts too. When you blame other people, things, or situations for the misery you may be going through, also it involves attributing your own negative thoughts and feelings onto others. For example, a person who himself has short temper may constantly complain that everyone but him is short-tempered. That's a good one. Now, on blaming, on automatic distorted thoughts, it says you focus on other persons as the source of your negative feelings, and you refuse to take responsibility for changing yourself. Now, I take responsibility for changing myself. Let's get that clear. Yeah. Yeah. Because it says she's to blame for the way I feel. My parents cause all my problems. Projection.
Or in that moment, you're not taking responsibility for the change.
In that moment, huh? Yeah, in that moment, yeah. And that still goes back to like, your emotions are going to leak out. Still go back to like managing. You're responsible to really to manage, your emotions. You're really responsible because there is consequences to your actions. Like in the heat of the moment, it's like anybody that gets in the heat of a moment and he may have that's what's not good to have a weapon. You know what I'm saying? If you're not disciplined to use it. You know what I'm saying? In the heat of the moment, you just fire off. You know what I'm saying? Then you say, oh man, what the hell did I do? Or you do harm to somebody and you say, God, then you locked, then the guy may be locked up, say, man, what the heck happened, man?
And that rationalization stuff, they deserve it.
Yeah, there we go. But that's you blaming others for your short temper, your actions, and you rationalizing and justifying it. And then the fourth one is subliminal.
So these are laws like Paul said.
Oh, yeah, my man.
They work together.
They work together. They work together. My man. Shout out to Paul and Brother Sankofa as well. So, subliminal, the fourth one, and we got 10. When you fulfill your socially unacceptable needs and drives in a socially acceptable manner. For example, a person who has a need for violence and aggression may desire to become a policeman. And that's an interesting one too.
Okay, subliminal?
Yeah.
It says when you fulfill social acceptance, what is it?
Sublimation, right?
Say it again.
It's sublimation, right?
Sublimation. Yeah, sublimation. That's right. Sublimation. Yeah. Yeah. When you fulfill your socially unacceptable needs, you feel socially unacceptable, and drives in a socially acceptable manner. That's driving you now, right? For example, a person who has a need for violence and aggression may desire to become a police officer. That's serious though, ain't it? It is serious. And you can see that, just funny again, because this is playing out in my life. But it's funny. But you see that in how people are, these things are something that's not dealt with in the early childhood stage. You know what I'm saying? Because if you look at what they call, and I understand what they call like gang violence or whatever, you know what I'm saying? You become when you want to fulfill your socially unacceptable needs, then you'll join a particular group of people. A lot of these guys who are celebrities lost their life because of that. They ain't no street people. They just want to be socially accepted. It's fulfilling their needs. You see what I'm saying? Of being a what? Of being accepted. And this is how it is even in the people who call themselves, and I don't want to get into it, conscious, what they call community, whatever. They feel as though that they're socially unacceptable, so they're trying to fill their needs. So therefore, I'm the one now that you should listen to. I'm the leader that you listen, because I'm conscious now. You know what I'm saying? The same thing is playing out. It's still playing out this day. And it's having to deal with the causes and consequences of emotional suppression. Even in men, hey, your acceptable needs. In order to find your value, you got the prettiest woman, you have sex with all the women and all the other stuff. You just fulfilling your needs of being seeing yourself as being socially unacceptable, and this is the way you feel as though that you're acceptable. I got the baddest woman there.
No, I think it's. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, okay. I think I see what it is, man. I see what you're saying, man. So I got a definition of this.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone when you feel your social unacceptable behavior, when you feel your social unacceptable behaviors in a socially acceptable manner.
Yeah, because this is a guy who wrote this. Go ahead, Monty. Sorry.
No, I got you. Go ahead.
He said this here. Let me see what I can find out here. This is good stuff. He says, see yourself in the universe and see the universe in yourself. Discover yourself by becoming, by doing. But see yourself in the universe and see the universe in yourself. We're always trying to fit in, see socially accepted on that which is on the outside when that you don't even accept yourself on the inside. And these are the urges that the society is promoting as pleasure. These are pleasurable urges. When I say when you see yourself, how they are exploiting the pleasure of being accepted in the society.
But I think sublimation is one of those. I think sublimation is one of those defense mechanisms that is thought to be has benefit that actually is not told that can be healthy. As far as all right, so let's say we use the example of police officer, and I think police officer, I know police officer is a trigger for us, so we might have to African synthesize that a little bit and say something different. Because to us, police officer and aggression just doesn't mix. So I think if we would use that as a boxer, right? Or we would use that as a football player, or we would use that as a person who runs marathons, or a person who plays tennis, or a person, take that level of aggression and put it to a tennis game, or run, or, that type of thing, which would be socially acceptable. I think the key word is socially acceptable because a aggressive police officer if you have this aggressive tendency and you're taking it and now you're abusing, that wouldn't be socially acceptable per se to use it in a like police brutality and things of that nature. It's not socially acceptable. It might seem like it is in this society, but it really isn't. At least it isn't to us, right?
Right.
So socially acceptable is the key term. So if I'm a person who's pretty, I take any type of emotion and then now utilize that in a socially acceptable manner, it's typically, for the most part, unless it's overly used and then abused, then it's not socially acceptable.
Right.
Well, that's the challenge, because anything that we realize in life, that the intentions behind anything that we do. We know that we're living in a society where at least in this country, where we talk about status, and certain titles, certain things that you do, it helps elevate your status, and it makes you to be a part of a particular group. That's natural. Everybody wants to be a part of a particular group because we live in a social milieu or a social environment. That's natural. But the intentions behind it is what's most important. So go ahead. Yeah. No, go ahead, fine, brother.
Like the doctor that was at Johns Hopkins,
Mm-hmm.
that was a gynecologist,
Mm-hmm.
but he was a gynecologist, I guess, behind the fact that he was, I don't know what's the term, molesting or
Yeah, I got you.
fondling
Yes, sir.
all his patients.
Yeah.
So that's a case, but it wouldn't be socially acceptable, though. You see what I'm saying?
Now,
He used something that he took something that was not socially acceptable.
Mhm.
You understand what I'm saying? But he took it and used it to his advantage, where it wasn't socially accepted, but he could get away with it.
yes, sir.
He got to wait for that for years.
Yeah.
And when he found out, he committed suicide.
Yeah.
When he got sued, he committed suicide.
Well,
But that might be an example.
No, but Shane, what we're trying to do is we want to deal with the sickness of it, because sometimes it's hard for us to distinguish between a disease and health and sickness and health. Because our emotions are so oppressed, and I'm no psychologist, but man, some things that our early experienced childhood, man, you don't realize that trauma, man, plays a part in our life. If we don't deal with that crisis early on, sooner or later down the line, it's going to come right in our face. And we see the society in which we live seems to perpetuate and promote that. And that's what I'm saying, that the culture has some influence over over our emotions if we don't manage and control them.
Okay. Subliminal? Is that what you're still talking about?
Sublimation.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's different from subliminal, right?
Subliminal what?
Then it's similar.
Okay, because he's got subliminal
Oh, okay.
on the paper.
Sublimination is it SUBLIMATION?
Okay.
Is that on that paper there?
No, it's NAL, subliminal.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, that's wrong.
Because I'm sitting here thinking, I thought that was a little.
Well, that could be. I mean, they're close because there are subliminal messages that are out there that we're probably not even acknowledging and paying any attention to it, and it make us respond and react in a manner, in a way that we seek, that we feel as though that we are unaccepted, so we'll go out of our way just to feel accepted. It's like they always use a young sister, like Sister, always, I don't like to use her name, but Tammy Terrell, like at an early age, she was misused and abused, and then therefore she thought it was socially acceptable, so, she continued to participate in promiscuous activity because it seemed to be accepted by the society. But it's not accepted because no one deal with it. No one wanted to deal with it. No one wanted us to face up with it. We really have to be really responsible as human beings when it comes to our emotions, when it comes to our thoughts, when it comes to our feelings, and our comes to our action. It is a challenge.
I find something interesting that the more they, the thing seems to now be to disclose the lives
Yes, ma'am.
of these successful
Good point.
entertainers,
Good point.
and stuff, especially those that have passed on.
Yes, ma'am.
And it seems like all of the disclosure now has come to be, about how they live such a negative life.
Yes.
And stuff, like even in the movie Respect
Yeah.
and stuff. But it made me start to wonder, well, how much of what is soulful then? Do you have to be treated
Yeah.
bad, and you have to
Yeah.
go through all these negative experiences
Right.
to make you this soulful person?
Yes.
And I would hope that that's not the case.
Yes.
But I also wonder why it's so necessary now that people feel the need to disclose all this information about people that have passed on. Well, my daughter and I were talking about it, and she said she felt like it was necessary to help build the new generation, to let to open the eyes and make people see that you don't have to go through all this. You need to be fighting all of it, and I guess
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
like you say, not
Yes, ma'am.
accepting.
Yes, ma'am. That's your point. Because there are people who are even in, I don't like getting it. Certain people who consider themselves to be, leaders and so forth and so on. You know what I'm saying? Hey, come on, man. Ain't all what they cracked out to be, man. But that's another ball game within itself, I'm not going to cast the first stone. But yeah, so we can move on, and we're getting closer and closer. Suppression and repression. Memories of a traumatic, painful event, if recalled, can cause emotional pain, so our mind chooses to forget about them. When this is done consciously, it is called suppression. And when it happens subconsciously, it is termed repression. And I associate that with great orientation, distorted thoughts. Yes. Yep. 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 So for me, when it comes to emotional suppression and the causes and consequences, for the most part, many people don't want to deal with it. We run away from it. We don't want to when something gets in touch with your true feelings and your true emotions, it is so painful that we run away from it. Well, Bob Marley say running and running and running, but you can't run away from yourself. You can't run away from yourself. So, this memories of traumatic and painful event, if recalled, can cause emotional pain. The next 6 is compensation. It means displaying greatness to hide your inner weakness.
Hold on. What number we at?
Number 6. Compensation.
So hold on, I got 4. What happened to 5?
5 was repression and suppression.
Repression.
And suppression. Did you want to elaborate on that, Montu, or something? Repression or suppression?
No, I had missed it.
Okay. And number 6 is compensation. It means displaying greatness to hide your inner weakness. Narcissism.
Compensation?
Yeah, narcissism. A personality disorder in which a person exaggerates. And these are certain caricatures, as the book Man, and I think Dennis, I brought a book here, Man and something. It's talking about character. Yeah. How people will exaggerate certain things about us as a people, but that ain't the case. You know, exaggeration.
Exaggeration is number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
No, compensation is 6. Compensation is 6. It means displaying greatness to hide your inner weakness. A personality disorder in which a person exaggerates his or her own self-importance. It is a good example of compensation. Personality disorder.
Exaggeration. I saw that.
Yeah. Exaggerates. Or a E without the S. I'd use the plural form. You're displaying your great. You're hiding something. But you know, you're hiding your inner weakness. You know, it's like someone can make you feel inferior at the expense of making them feel superior. That's hiding your inner weakness. And number 7, fantasy. We fantasize when we can do nothing about a problem that we encounter or when we want to satisfy a strong need. It helps us to create an alternate reality in which our problem is solved and our needs are fulfilled. Fantasy. Says again, example, a poor man imagining himself as a billionaire is an example of a fantasy. Don't mean that can't happen. But we want to deal with things that are, tangible, things that are attainable.
That was
number 7.
Fantasy was number
7. And then 8 is the one that really sticks out with me. People have a problem with Freud on this one. But escapism. Escapism. Meaning escaping from the current unpleasant and uncomfortable reality. That's a big one there. For example, you try to forget about your problems by taking drugs or drinking. Is a classic example of escapist behavior. Escapism. It's can be hard to deal with this reality. People keep running away. They don't want to deal with it. They want to escape. They want to run. They want to hide. And then we try to either compensate for it, say escapism, and we fantasize a lot over things. And then we try to make up for it. We try to cover it up, by, don't want to deal with this reality. You know what I'm saying? So, and I'm not downplaying anything. People say the spirit world, all that other stuff. But, we still got to deal with this reality here. We ain't saying we don't see electricity, don't mean it don't exist. I'm not saying that.
So you say the spirit world is escapism too.
You said it, not me.
That's the whole reason. He couldn't wait to get that. He should have started off with. Escapism.
Yeah.
But I think all of them. Even most of the other defense mechanisms are forms of escape.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And we come into a close, and we're going to close it. And the next one is denial. 9. It means denying that a negative event ever happened or denying the possible threat of a negative event. People who lose their loved ones sometimes go through an initial phase of denial in which they claim that the dead person isn't really dead. That's another challenge. You know how some of these people who sell celebrities and they say, always say, man, I seen, he ain't dead, man. I saw him on the islands. You know what I'm saying? But he's gone. But we still, it's hard for us to accept the fact that, and we're living in the now, that, you know, physically we're going to pass. And there's a story about a young lady who lost a good close relative of his or a family member, and she used a doll to remind her of the lost one. It was a grieving. Sooner or later, the doll helped her, but sooner or later, she started putting the doll away because she started dealing with the reality that the person is gone. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I used to work for a psychiatrist, and he had a patient who actually carried a grown woman. She actually carried a doll around with her all the time. She would change its clothes according to the weather and all this stuff, you know, and it started affecting her because she was doing this in exchange for a child that had died. But she had another child who was alive who started having psychological problems because she was so ashamed and stuff of her mother and her always having to be with this doll and her mother expecting her to act like this doll was real and stuff.
Ain't that something? Yeah. Go ahead, Dennis, you had something.
No, I mean.
This is a serious bill, so I'm really thankful that you all are here, and I'm thankful for this brother because he's in that field, you know what I'm saying? Because we really got to manage our emotions. We got to understand the psychological twist. It's like, and I know people talking about the Nation of Islam, whatever. Don't think that Farad didn't see some things what was going on before he came here, and he put a psychological twist on things. You know, just to wake people up. Sometimes you got to put a psychological twist on it. And sometimes that psychological twist can be outdated. So it's time to move on. That's like Afrocentricist. You know what I'm saying? Some of that stuff may work then, it may not work now. So sometimes we got to go through changes and modifying these things. Because we're dealing with this present moment at this present time. And finally, I think it is reaction and formation. Reaction formation. Yeah, I always say. It means converting unwanted thoughts and feelings into their opposite so that other people are misled and don't look down on us. You call that what you call a triangle or something sometimes?
Well, that's different.
Trick bag. I call it trick bag. We'll say it one more time.
Reaction formation.
Yeah.
That's all one word. Reaction formation.
Yeah,
Two words. Yeah. Yeah. And feelings into their own opposites so that other people are misled and don't look down on us. For example, a person who's bored to death in a party may start behaving weirdly, dancing around crazily, cracking cheesy jokes, and laughing pretentiously.
To deal with his
That's right.
uneasiness.
That's right.
Okay, now, so what's the definition?
Yeah, that was an example, but yeah, to deal with his uneasiness, his unwanted thoughts.
Okay, dealing with your uneasiness and unwanted thoughts.
Yeah, it says it means converting unwanted thoughts and feelings into their opposites.
Like some people, I see it all the time, where we act like everything is so swell.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's good, especially when it comes to relationships. and they try to convince you and everybody else that it's all that.
Yeah, and you know how people say, well, it's all good.
It's better.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Oh no.
Yeah, no.
And they smiling and snuggling.
They hurting like a son of a gun.
And they even convince themselves
Yeah.
for a little while.
That's what it is. Converting needs and unwanted thoughts into what?
It says opposite. It says into opposites, so that other people are misled. So it's misleading people. that you don't look down on them. And listen, look at the trick. You use the trick bag. That's the same thing in the society in which we live.
That's what I said.
These people use this to their advantage, man. Whoever these people are, you'll figure it out. They use it to their advantage. So they justify their behavior that you don't look down on them, and you think that what they're doing is right. And they look like they act like they sane. Huh? They think that they sane. They ain't sane. They sicker than sick you get. And then
You seem to have been down.
yeah.
Sick. Hey, how many times? What kind of sentence was that?
Sick you get. In closing,
I mean, I understand it.
in closing, I'm gonna share this and close. Integration, he says, is not the answer in an unjust society. What y'all think? There's nothing wrong with integration. There is a sense of urge and direction to follow. If the society is suitable, the society that is suitable will help you enter it when you are near. They will give you more and share with you what they have. But if there is a society in which you are not wanted, and that society is not based upon pure principles, the closer you get, the more their program is upstaged to keep you out. In their estimation, you came from a situation of subjection to another situation of subjection, because they upstage the strategy to keep you out. And though you are in the society physically, you are not yet a part of it. What does that mean? If we look at when it comes to the causes and consequences of emotional suppression and the 10 defense mechanisms, if we don't deal with the compensation, the fantasy, the sublimation, the escapism, and the denial, and the dislocation, if we don't deal with them, in the long run, it gets us to a point. Not only are we unable to manage our emotions, but we're allowing those other things to manage our emotions for us, when those other things or other people have not even managed their emotions. And that makes us, who are unable to manage our emotions, that make us to act out the sickness of another human being or a people. Any questions, comments, concerns, challenges?
I think it definitely takes away from our time to deal with self if we're so consumed with having to act out other people's.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Yeah, I think it was good. I appreciate it. I didn't know it was 10 defense mechanisms.
Mm-hmm.
Ego defense mechanisms. So it was pretty interesting. I liked it. I think they very valuable. I think just to have a note of this and having this sometimes.
Yes, sir.
I have it as a cheat sheet. I'm like, hold up. That's sublimation right here.
Yes.
So I go back to my notes, right?
Yes, sir.
But I was curious to know what you say about compensation. What you say about compensation? What's the definition of compensation? Can we use the
Compensation, it says here is that it means displaying greatness to hide your inner weakness.
hide your inner weakness?
Yes, and that's narcissism, a personality disorder.
Okay. So, all right. So how would you detect that? So, I mean, not necessarily narcissism. Right?
I let the clinician talk about that.
Okay, good. You got it. He gave you the will.
Well, I mean, when I immediately talk about compensation, I
Yes.
think about when we overcompensate with things like money, cars, jewelry,
Yes, sir.
women.
Overcompensation.
So I'm using the word overcompensation, but that's what it kind of means. You know, when we're trying to when we feel empty inside, we trying to fill that void with something else, or we feel let's say we don't feel adequate, So you see a lot of people, I might not feel as smart as everybody else, maybe, then I'm just gonna learn big words and then I'm just gonna be spewing them out and, you know, like we overcompensate in many different ways, you know. We overcompensate with something we feel we gotta dress a certain way and I gotta be looked at this way and we whatever, you know, we try to compensate with other things so we become overly, it's like an imbalance to a degree.
Because we know that there is no such thing as Superman, Superwoman. That's exaggerating. No one can run through buildings and do a single bound. That's coming out, you know, whatever we call it, code. You know what I'm saying?
Kevin, speak for yourself.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, that's over-exaggerating. You know what I'm saying? Even if you look at certain shows that are depicted of people, you know, and the characters, that's over-exaggerating. You know what I'm saying?
So you didn't give a whole psych 101 fast track today, huh?
Yeah. It was good. I want to thank you, Sister Donnie, there for seeing that it wasn't completed and continue to push the progress of the temple here. And thank Brother Montu for coming out as well. Yeah. And Brother Dennis Saw Winkler there for the work that he's doing in providing a place that we really can get the help that we need in the healing that is needed, at least within one another. You know what I'm saying? And then we go out and be the example as best as we can for others as well, and be the model. And that's good stuff, man. It's good stuff. So
one example, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Yes, sir.
I was just thinking about the overcompensation of like sometimes we overcompensate with this idea of spirituality.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah.
We do. And that's what it's, you know, it's like it's on a crash course. You know what I'm saying? It's at the intersection. Who's going to get there first? You know what I'm saying? And then we get there at the same time. Boom. But the objective of that in the math sense is that they both are equal. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? They both are equal. And it's about the balance. Then I will go with my art. You know, it's about the balance.
I think it's interesting too, then how you get on those spiritual courses and becomes an argument of who's right and who's wrong.
Yeah.
You know, all that energy put into my way is the right way, your way is the wrong way.
Right. That's right. Because in closing, what equates us in that which we are equal is that when my mother and father got together, they equated something. They met. That met, sperm mixed with ovum, and therefore the mathematical equation, I'm right here. So until next time, I want to say thank you so much and nothing but the best for you. Yeah.
Wonderful job, Brother Kevin. Always coming with the actual information that will keep us on our toes, keep our minds working, and keep our bodies working. Yeah, wonderful job again, Brother Kevin, man. I always appreciate your presentation. I always can sense the forethought that went into it. I can understand the intellect that all is associated in there some kind of way. You always give us a unique perspective to look at it. So we appreciate you for coming out and give Brother Kevin for taking up that task and coming on the main. So we appreciate you for your consistency as well, Brother Kevin.
Yes, sir.
At this time, we can do now is with the Marley Move books.
Oh yeah, I'm just putting it on the screen. I'm just putting it on the screen just in case. You know what I'm saying?
All right. At this time, we want to close and then close it with do what we always do. And we'll say, let's stay together. Because I think that's that one string that keeps all the string all together, right? So we need that string. So we'll keep that string together. So or this time, we're gonna put our hands in the air. And on the count of 3, we're gonna say Harambe, which means let's go together. On the count of 3, we're gonna do it 7 times, and let's go.
Harambe, 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 Harambe.